that'll be a big hurdle to handle, because thunderstorms in the summer, they just come and hit you, without warning sometimes. So it'll be something to think about.
Hey guys, this is Josh Green from Mechanicsburg. We've been at an outdoor camp for a long time, and we use Remind to do text alerts. It's easy for parents to sign up for, and it's easy for you to do one message and it sends out to all your participants. We've had a lot of success with that, and less people not getting the emails, just an FYI. Also, I posted in the notes or in the chat link to the Google Doc. A lot of organizations have put in their information on what they're doing for the summer. If you haven't already, take a minute, put your info in there, and people can refer to that offline, and we can all share what we're doing. If anybody gets an update, we can update the information there, and everybody can see it at one time.
This is Audrey. Sorry. This is Audrey from Camp Hillborough. I also, like Josh, have our camp is completely outside. And then if it's bad weather, we do have a cabin that the children and the counselors use. But my question is to you guys, have you heard anything about, even if we're able to have camp, are we going to have to keep them at a social distance of 6 feet? And if so, how is that possible in a camp setting when you're trying to play a game?
Audrey, this is Mike Rashino from Whitpain, and that's kind of where Kurt and I are going back and forth right now, is if we're able to do any form of a camp, how can we tell a 6-year-old you have to wear a mask and you guys have to stay 6 feet apart, and how can you modify games? And we're literally talking about taking the fields and lining them into squares, and kids have numbered squares if we have to do certain games that way, or a harness for a hula hoop, and they wear a hula hoop all day kind of thing, and they don't hoops. I mean, we've kicked around a million ideas. I hate to be the doom and gloom guy, but I don't think it's really going to be possible. If you have to have masks on all the kids and socially distant, I don't think camp's a reality this summer. I know nobody wants that, and obviously that's the doomsday scenario for most of us. But I'm just planning different scenarios, but ultimately I think that's where we end up.
Thank you. That's where I'm at as well. I've talked to my codes officer, and he said, running the camp outside is one thing, but if you've got to put those kids indoors or you've got to sit them down for lunch, you can separate them by, spots in the grass for lunch. But if you have all those kids inside the cabin, there's no way to situate them for 8 hours being 6 feet apart from each other. To me, it's just it's not a positive experience, especially for the kids who are coming for the first time, or the kids who are returning and they're used to knowing how camp runs and what fun things they get to do. And they're not doing any of it in the way that they're used to. So I'm just concerned about how it all pans out. Just wondering what everybody else is thinking.
Right. I think at that point in time, we're not really functioning as summer camps. We're more functioning as babysitting for parents that have to go back to work.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
I know. Oh, Greg Kreiner. I'm from Kingston, Pennsylvania. I know the CDC has already come out with some guidelines, and one of the guidelines is you're going to have to take every person temperature that arrives at your camp, staff, child, anybody. That's one of the suggestions.
Is it once a day, or is it like in the beginning of the day?
I think it's the beginning of the day, but when the parents drop them off, you have to take the parents, I think it is. I think your staff, everybody.
I'm sorry, this is Mike Rashino from Whitpain again. Can you expand on that if you know any more? Does it have to be a qualified nurse that takes the temperature, or can any layperson do it?
From what I was told, anyone could do it. But Friday, they were supposed to come out with their guidelines. That's what I was told, the CDC. So on Friday, they're coming out with everything.
I just posted their guidelines that in the chat box, the CDC guidelines for camps and childcare. So if you cut and paste that, I'm I'm going back. I worked in the school for 20 years, and we worked without a nurse. And so we had very specific protocol for taking temperatures when we thought children were sick. And we never really had a problem with parents on that, as long as we were very clear with what our protocol was. We're going to take your temperature. If the child does not look well and feels hot, we're going to take their temperature. If the temperature is at 100 or above, your child is going home. And that worked fairly well. We had very little pushback from parents on that. I mean, you always get one or two, but so I wouldn't be real fearful with that, as long as it's done consistently and there's a known protocol.
Hey guys, my name is Erica Gennardi from Norristown Municipality. I can speak to 2 points real quick. So my husband actually works for Greater Philadelphia YMCA. He's a facility director, and how they are monitoring currently for their child care for the essential staff, people that are essential staff, they are taking anybody, workers, any kind of staff, anybody who enters the building. They do have a registered nurse on staff that they've hired, kind of like as a contract, to take the temperatures and kind of feel out if there's any kind of symptoms, if they can come in, and they are basing it off of a temperature of 100. For camp moving forward here in Norristown, that's probably something I don't think we can necessarily look into doing some kind of a registered nurse, but we would probably have a person on staff, like you were saying before, doing that whole temperature, because we have, previously to this year, we were solely outdoors in one of our large parks, and we would use, if it did rain, so first point, if it does rain, my contingency was we do have a pavilion, or we are able to, because I'm in kind of a more urban area, I guess you can call Norristown, we will walk, and I had partnerships with the library and things. I know that's not feasible for everybody, but I would call the library, we could walk over, because my borough hall is not, we can't accommodate any kind of children in it, and we would kind of take a little shelter in the library. This year, we do have a space now, so we would have the children here. And something else that we're looking to do is to max the camp out. So if they do keep it at, certain groups at a certain number, or social distancing still, it's just going to become, instead of necessarily a child care, we're not licensed or anything, but it's not necessarily like a child care type of camp, but more of a specialized, maybe only a few hours. We would modify it down to maybe half day of camp and have, registration of, you can get a week, 15 kids at a time or whatever it is. But that's just something we've done here, and just the knowledge that I know that's going on out there. Thank you.
Hello, this is Michelle Schasberger. I'm also in Kingston, Pennsylvania, but I work for the Wilkes-Barre Family YMCA. We partner with the city of Wilkes-Barre to provide the summer lunches and some park supervision in city of Wilkes-Barre parks. So it's really an open drop-in kind of program. And right now, we're very committed to actually providing meals, because we understand from the school district they're going to discontinue meals on June 12th. But we really don't know that we'll provide any other services.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea, because it'll give both Dustin and Jody a look at what the system itself, so they can express a kind of opinion one way or the other on whether or not they think that's something that have time.
The last meeting I was just in before was for community centers. And one of the questions that was asked was, are we even going to be able to get the supplies that we need for sterilization right now? Disinfectants, things like that. So many big companies are out of these. Just another thing that's out there. And then once again, like, who's going to run around and disinfect after all these kids? I mean, are we going to hire more staff when we're already limiting the number of children in our camps?
No, those are good questions, and you know, are you going to need to be honest, I have not read the guidelines yet from the CDC, but are you going to need to be certified to disinfect? And is it going to be, you know, you're going to additional training for your staff, or is it something that we're going to do as the kind of the leaders of the programs? I just have a lot of questions I need answers to that, you know, before I can set policies on things. I mean, you know, and then I got to run everything by our township solicitor, who's probably going to shut it all down anyway.
Yep.
Someone had asked a question earlier about if we were going to provide personal protective equipment. And I think for the staff, we would have to, but campers, I think we would require them to bring their own masks and that kind of thing. Just the numbers, that's where I think we'd have a problem getting things.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what happens when a child wouldn't show up with a mask or something? Got to go home.
It's like when they show up for a trip without their camp t-shirt on, we give them one and charge the parents $10.
Okay.
One of the suggested activities for your camp is the first thing is to have the children make their own face mask and decorate it and put it on, and then it's theirs for the week.
Yeah, and it could stay there. That's a great idea.
Mhm. But what about supplies? I mean, how are you going to handle that? You know, the craft activities, does everybody have to bring their own? You know, does everybody wear gloves when they're drawing or painting using communal materials?
Yeah, great question.
I think rubber gloves will be a big investment for your camps, at least starting out. A couple of comments from the chat box. Allentown runs 18 playgrounds, all at outside sites. How do you clean picnic tables, playground equipment every day on what budget?
Exactly.
What about camper day pack requirements from home each day? What about latex allergies? If you go to gloves, that's a great question. Our parents are concerned about them not being in air conditioning. You know, on my list, that would be really kind of low, but that's just me.
Yeah, my camp's always outside. This actually would have been the 25th summer, which is like such a bummer. But my camp's always been outside, and parents know that the kids are not in air conditioning as far as that's concerned. The only time we're ever inside is if we were to have a bad storm. And I think the more parents, I mean, from talking to parents over the years, just reminding them, hey, they're kids. Kids don't mind the heat as much as the parents do, who are in their air-conditioned buildings all day and then come outside to pick up their child. So as far as air conditioning goes, I mean, that's not a concern for me, at least. My only concern with the air conditioning is if the kids have to wear a mask all day, that's going to be really, really hot on top of the heat alone. So I am concerned about the masks with them in 90, 95 degree weather. They have to wear them all day.
Mm-hmm.
Another comment is about field trips and what do you do with them? Social distancing on a school bus, you're going to have to, you know, rent out twice the number of school buses to have the proper social distancing to make your trip.
I mean, amusement parks and stuff have no idea when they're going to be open. movie theaters will be in the same category, I'm sure, for our state. I don't know where you'll take the kids, to be honest. I know I'm in charge of our pool too. We have a 400,000 gallon pool. We're not taking daycares this year. We're not taking parties. Because they're all over each other and stuff, and then we'll have members there. So we've just decided no.
Mhm.
This is Ken at West Goshen. Does anyone do field trips where parents drop the kids off at the trip site?
That would be a nightmare.
Hi, this is Pat Cannon with Mount Lebanon Recreation. Our school district has closed their buildings on Fridays for the past 7-8 years. And rather than run a 4-day camp, we do field trips on Fridays to places that are close proximity within probably 3.5 miles, and parents have to drop off. The fee is an extra fee that they pay in advance earlier that week, so we know how many to expect. And we go to the movies, we go bowling, things of that nature.
Mike from Whitpain again. Is anybody considering alternatives to trips, maybe bringing in a special event a week to your camp? You know, bring the fire company in, they can spray the kids down with the hose, or bring in, you know, have a movie day in your camp, or, you know, and rent a big screen or something, you know, just as an alternative and a special event and a value to the parents when you can't do the busing and stuff for the trips.
I decided, since we usually do one big trip and it's somewhere big where there would be a lot of public exposure, to cancel the trip, but we do a community guest each week. And that's bringing somebody in and have everybody divided up in their age groups to cycle through, almost like a circuit of time with that individual. So they tend to cater stuff towards the age group they're going to speak to. So the timeline changes to the age groups for, but that I think I'm going to rely on maybe even more than once a week if this does happen, just because of the fact we're missing the field trip.
This is Audrey Logar again. My camp, we don't do field trips because we're not a school bus district, so I don't have access to buses. So we've always brought guests in, fire trucks, police cars. During community week, we brought in llamas. So we have done all of that. That's the only kind of visitors we have.
Same here. We don't do any any field trips at all. We just have guest speakers once a week, every week.
And the input,
We'll have the Penguins hockey team come in. They'll bring their mascot in. Local baseball team comes in for the Yankees. So we have groups like that.
the input from the chat box does seem to slant towards not having field trips this year for your camps, but using assemblies or bringing people in rather than going outside of the camp. A question that was asked earlier, and I wanted to follow up on, because I think that's going to be a big issue, is how do you sanitize? What can you do, to protect the kids and your staff coming out this summer with playgrounds and outdoor areas?
This is Jason from East Goshen again. I'm not quite sure on the procedure or protocol of how to administer it yet. Our public works guys are kind of looking through that detail, but we did buy a misting blower. So it's essentially a high quality steel leaf blower with an attachment for liquid. So we have a disinfectant liquid that goes inside there, and I can get specs for you, I'm sure. And that's what we're going to use to disinfect our playground. I don't know if we'll be doing it once a day, twice a day, once a week, whatever, but That's about the most efficient way that we found to disinfect playgrounds, steel posts, plastics, that kind of thing.
Derek Mull from Montgomery Township here. So you can disinfect all you want, but is there any official training that we will have to be mandated to go through at the end of all this to make that happen? That's out of control, whether we either get it or you don't open.
That's a great question. And Jason, people are already asking you for info on that piece of equipment.
All right, I'll send it to you, Dan. And then if you want to send it out to the group, is that
Yeah,
possible?
That's fine.
Okay.
I highly doubt they're going to have a specialized training for all this. The only reason I say that is because right now, for lifeguards, they're pretty much saying if your certification's up, you're still good. For your driver's license, you're good till July, even if it expired last month. I don't know how they fit that in with everybody between now and May when they haven't even made a decision on how we're going to open our camps. And the crazy part about it is people bought ionizers and all this stuff, but just remember, the CDC says as soon as someone touches something that was sanitized, it is now contaminated. So you can't have like 10 kids touch something and it's still good. First kid that touches it, it's contaminated.
Right. And if CDC puts anything out that's mandatory, I'm not saying they will, but they don't really care that we're trying to do the best we can for people. It's going to be, you have to do it.
Yeah, no, if they would do that, summer camp's over for everybody at that point.
Yep, 100%.
Mhm.
So this is Sarah from Upper Gwinnett Township. We were talking about, if they do that and if summer camp's over for everybody. Does anyone have any alternatives they're talking about? I heard last time we had this conversation, like a pop-up activity at your park or things like that.
They've been discussing the virtual camps online, but I just can't see how a kid that just went through 3 or 4 months worth of school online wants to go back to every day being online for camp then too. I mean, you'd have to have Jim Carrey or somebody like that to entertain them at that point. I don't know what you would do.
Sure, maybe like a big special event, not a big special event, but maybe, post it the night before and say, hey, we're going to have a clown come and you paint grass marks in the grass where everyone can stand, like things like that. Is anyone thinking along those lines?
I think it's going to depend what the guidelines are as far as how many people can be in one area together. I mean, I didn't cancel my lunchbox music on certain Fridays of the summer yet. Kind of waiting to, hopefully maybe we'll get something lifted here, but if they're only going to allow 25 to 50 people, I'm not going to be able to have any of those special events at all in the summer because it draws in at least 100. So I think it all depends on what the governor says.
I have a comment here in the text box that Jennifer Feen did a trivia event for her campers on Facebook. They loved it for family game night. Jennifer, you want to talk a little more about that?
Sure. Can everybody hear me? I sometimes have problems with these headphones. Yeah, we just wanted to kind of engage our campers. And I have a very creative administrative staff that came up with a trivia event, and we had daily activities leading up to that Monday through Thursday. It happened to be, my assistant camp director, for some reason, has a lot of Lego figures that are like celebrities. I don't know why this is. But so we did a Monday through Thursday. We had a different Lego activity on our website every day, different Lego challenges. And then on Friday, we did a Facebook Live celebrity Lego trivia but it worked out really well, and the families really responded well to it. So really, you could do trivia about anything. And it was just a way to engage our campers and their families while we're trying to figure out what the heck we're doing. Because, you know, I know they're getting impatient and we just don't have answers for them right now. So we thought we'd give them a little bit of fun.
Good idea.
Yeah, this is Craig from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. All those are great ideas, but the way I'm funded, I have to generate about 50% of my operating budget. My operating budget's about 650. So like this summer day camp is my golden goose, and to do all these extra guidelines, and I know we don't know them yet, but has anybody thought about any way to actually generate some money for some people that are in kind of my situation?
I totally understand where you're coming from because I'm in the same situation. Our summer day camp literally pays for my salary and our entire part-time staff's for the year. We lose it, you know, and how can I make up that much money? I mean, I have a basketball program that I have 350 children in. I have a soccer program that's 350 children, and I don't make that much money that I make with summer camp for 8 weeks. That's all it is.
Yeah, correct. And like for me, I have a big soccer program that I make a nice chunk of money on it, and also a deck hockey program, and all those were canceled. And I'm trying to hold credits for these people, but a lot of people want their money back, which I understand because they're going through some situations themselves. But you know, when I'm taking a $25,000 hit there, and then summer day camp doesn't go through. Then my special events, I do a couple 5Ks and a Ninja Warrior special event. So we're actually, technically you're talking to a furloughed employee right now, and the rest of my staff is actually furloughed too. So, you know, for you people out there that are getting tax dollars, congratulations.
Craig, have you looked into anything that the government was offering through the small business, you know, the bailout money that
They're not set up for government. That's
Yeah,
the problem is with that.
I filled it out as soon as it came out, and then when they have put more money in it, I filled it out. So I'm waiting to hear the second round. But as I don't know if you call him Greg or Gregory, you know, it wasn't filled out really for nonprofits. They didn't really change the, I guess, the way you submit your application. So I don't see myself getting any money. And probably if anybody got it, would be the city, and they give me a small portion of the tax dollars that I'm funded by.
Same situation. I mean, they said that there was supposed to be, I want to say like $50 million for local government or something for bailout. They've never approved it. Every time it goes in, it gets dropped in each one. So I'm not expecting to see it. I did hear though from someone, for your knowledge, that you might be able to claim your losses with your insurance company possibly by not having those programs and having to reimburse people.
Some suggestions from the chat box include fishing, maybe a fishing contest or a fishing tournament. United Way of Wyoming Valley is concerned about learning loss. If camp offers 1 to 2 hours of math literacy in the morning, maybe we can get some funding there. Golf courses will be open soon, maybe a golf outing as a fundraiser, especially if people know the reason why. It might, you know, help. Another question from the chat concerned about hiring staff. How do you hire staff at least at last minute? And will I be able to get counselors who are willing to wear masks, disinfect, etc.? So there's going to another happy topic. What do we do with our staff and how can we manage that?
We've already thought about our lifeguards having to sit on stands wearing masks. How's that? So there's no answers. That's the problem. There's a lot of questions.
Hey guys, this is Matt Gilbert from Lower Southampton Township in Bucks County. We run a summer camp program. We average between 85 and 90 camp counselors. It's a primarily outdoor program. One of our biggest concerns when running through scenarios with HR is if we run a shortened program, will we still have that same commitment from returning staff and new hired staff that they signed up for 9 weeks and now we're only offering them 5 or less? Will we get that commitment from them, and will we be able to staff it in a situation that we are open in normal conditions or close to normal conditions? So, any thoughts?
This is Doug. I'm with Gears in Elizabethtown. I think you'll get the staff. I mean, they haven't been working. They need something. I mean, I'm one of the furloughed. My department needs 84% revenue from its programs to operate. So I think people are going to be willing to work. I think you'll get people that you may have not gotten before, that are in current situations of furloughs. You might get some more experienced people. But I mean, the big thing is going to be how are you going to handle Act 47 now and the additional things that need to be done now with that. It's going to take time, and our time is shrinking here quickly as we're moving forward.
Thanks, Doug. Some input from the chat box. Someone did a survey for staff. Most are eager to do something. They said whenever we open, they'd be there. There was an agreement with that statement. We already have the hiring process is already complete. We have been keeping them in the loop via emails, very positively received, and we have all of them are planning to return. No one else is hiring. We're all in the same situation. Most are willing, given guidelines are followed and training is provided. We hire 16 and up. We are considering only going with 18 and up now. So it looks like staff may be a positive in this, or at least some of them in this situation. But PA Act 47 and 87, I think it is, are 2 acts that will affect our hiring process here in recreation. We actually have a webinar next week on at the PRPS about those 2 acts and how they can affect you. That webinar is free to all, but you do need to go to the PRPS website and sign up for it.
Yeah, Dan, Act 87 I don't think has too much impact on the current hiring process. Because that's more in terms of lawsuits in the future.
Right. It just extends the reporting period or something.
Yeah,
like that.
It extends the reporting period for individuals. Act 47 is the one that's going to give us the most direct impact, with everybody, volunteers and staff, all needing clearances done. And with all the agencies, limited staff are shut down. It's going to be hard to get a lot of those things processed.
Right.
Dan, I didn't see the information about the webinar next on May 8th. Is that going to be put on there soon on your website? I saw the one on the 5th, but I didn't see the one on the 8th.
Oh, the one about reporting. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure that that's up. It'll be there.
Okay. Thank you.
So, can I bring this back and maybe ask a question about, we've spent some time, highlighting all the challenges that we're going to face opening up camps and even outdoor ones where we would think it would be a little easier to do given the outdoor environment. How many of you are hopeful that you're going to open up some form of a camp? Could you raise your hand in the reaction box? Just raise your hand. Great. All right, good. We're still going the right direction, I think. I know it all depends on Governor Wolf's and Pennsylvania's plan and whether we can, and getting some kind of guidelines so that we can have some path forward, knowing that we're doing as much as we can. But I'd also, just from an old guy's perspective, that, you know, it's an unusual time, and I think people are afraid of doing something wrong.
I can't get the audio on. That's funny, I couldn't get audio on mine today either.
Jessica, you're on. You're good. Here you go. I just think that if you are very clear about risks and what people are signing up for, that you're going to have more leeway than you think you will if a bad thing happens. You know, if you're doing the right things and you have a set protocol and you're applying them, and you're applying them equally.
What's it saying? Just saying, is there a problem?
And you're applying them across, you know, every camper, I think you're going to set yourself up with a, you know, a protocol that is known by the parents, that you're applying to everybody, that it's, and you have the appropriate waivers and signage up. You're going to, that'll be a good start for your camp. That people have to know what they're getting into. I mean, no one's been living under a rock for the past 2 months, you know, and you just have to be able to put it out there and take whatever responsibility, take whatever precautions you can, you know, and make sure that you're up with the latest guideline suggestions. But in the end run, I think, you know, parents and participants have to share some responsibility for what's going on. So that's end of sermon. But
the big question on all your webinars that I've been on, or roundtable discussions, are liability. Does it fall on the person or the facility? I've heard what you said, but also the lady that poured hot coffee over her lap by McDonald's and got $1 million. Everybody knew the coffee was hot. So,
and what year was that?
Today,
Craig, what year was that? I mean, it's things change, and
I know, but they're still.
And we're living in a. I'm not saying it won't happen, but you know that's why municipalities have insurance companies. That's why, you know. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I think given the time that we're in and the amount of publicity that situation has had, I think you're in a better spot, even if there is the occasional spilt coffee.
Dan, this is Judy from Spring Township.
Yes. Hi, Judy.
Just to reply to that, I think one of the biggest issues we have is nobody has the guidelines yet officially, you know, what we need to know, because once we know that, then we can make more of an informed decision. And some of these decisions are going to be out of our hands, regardless of what we, you know, if we say we can make all these accommodations, our boards and supervisors may say they're not willing to take the risk, and then we're out. So that's another issue that at least we're facing.
Yeah, totally understand. Yeah, you can't, if you go into this, you have to have people saying, yeah, we're all doing this. We're all in this together. You don't want to be out there by yourself. So I totally agree with your comments, Judy. So to keep the conversation go, another question that was asked was, what are some activities that you might plan that, could incorporate social distancing or some of the, what we think might be guidelines for coming camps? Does anyone have some ideas out there? A 6-inch hula hoop to wear. Okay. We were thinking sumo wrestling, with the big suits, everyone could get one, just bounce around. Pool noodles. Environmental activities, scavengers hunts, jump rope, badminton, yoga, dancing. Anyone else? Bird watching, nature hikes, bike rodeos, drawing, stream ecology. Will these really fill up a kid's day, and will all want to do this? That's a great question. Any thoughts? Corey.
They may not all want to do it, but I think the fact of if they're there, they may just be happy to be out of the house, and there are some options that are given. I don't know if there's kids that want to do every activity on a good year at camp. So,
One of the things,
all we can do is offer, I think.
one of the arguments that I brought up in another roundtable was how much of that ends up the parents' responsibility to do when it comes to trying to still work and make sure that the kids are following the virtual programs or things given by us virtually. Because if they're still stuck at home and not physically coming to us to be their caretaker, that's another thing for the parent to be potentially trying to help juggle with the child.
I'll be honest, we sent out a survey to a lot of our camp parents just to kind of see what some of our alternative options are. In Phoenixville Borough, our camps are held in our local schools, which is obviously, it's a high chance that that's not going to happen. And so we had sent out some alternative, and almost no one voted for the virtual camp. It was just something that they don't want to monitor, that they feel like their kids have already had too much screen time. I mean, we've considered that heavily as an option, but almost all of our parents said no thank you to that they would rather find an alternative solution for their summer. I also had a quick question, because we usually run our camps in schools, and we have both indoor and outdoor locations. If one of our options is to move to some of our local parks, if there's guidelines restricting the amount of people that can be in one place, if you are already running a camp or have for many years in an outdoor location like that, would you consider closing that park during camp hours so that outsiders or other people can't come in? What do you think your ideas would be on meeting those guidelines? If you have the max amount of people that you can in that space in an outdoor situation, how would you monitor other people coming into that space?
It's a great question.
For my outside day camp, if we have people that come into the area where our camp is set up every day, I normally will walk up and ask them and just tell them that at this time this area is only used for day camp, and then they'll leave. It hasn't been an issue because we have during the day of camp we have access to the cabin, the pavilion, and all of the green space in that upper area. So anyone who comes into that area is just, kindly asked to leave due to the camp being there, because we don't have their background checks. We don't have any of that kind of information. So they're not able to carry on a game in the space that we utilize.
We run, I'm from East Hanover Township, Dauphin County. I should have probably said that earlier. My name's Jane. Hi. We actually have a huge 60-acre park that camp is ran out of. We actually had signs made that you throw in the ground to actually block off areas for campers based on what we're doing certain days. But then there are the areas that are blocked off at all times. We only host a half-day camp, so it's never really been much of an issue. That residents and people that are local normal park goers have already figured out, okay, well, it's between 9 and noon. We can't go over on that section of the park. But those little signs that go on the ground have actually been awesome because you can take them out and move them. So if you're using a different section of the park that day, it's used to let everybody know that they can't really come in there.
And Jane, you mentioned a half-day camp, and that's also a possible way that you can avoid some of the issues that you might have with lunch. And kids, you give them a half hour or 40 minutes or however long for lunch, and then they're walking around, and usually it's an unstructured time. So you could eliminate some unstructured time in the whole eating thing by offering like a half-day camp, and then you would know that if you sanitize things first thing in the morning, at least it would only have like a 2 or 3 hour chance to get unsanitized. So that might be a way to do that, or 2 half-day camps with a sanitation schedule in between.
Well, we do have a snack time, but I'm trying to think of if our supervisors decide to still have camp, regardless of like at that point if we're recommending even not to. Which, I mean, we're not there yet. We don't have enough info for that. But I actually thought about the one main pavilion, putting 2 tents separated farther away for the different age groups. So it limits the exposure and just have them, we already rotate circuits what we're doing with age groups. So the only things I'd have to really worry about is the playground equipment from each age group's touching the same stuff eventually. But like it would be just trying to come up with alternative ideas of like, okay, well, this group's over at Gaga Ball Pit now. They have their own equipment designated for that group. So it's easier not to have everybody touching all the same stuff. I don't know, just trying to come up with solutions to make it work and stay within the numbers if they decide to still host it. So all their stuff and personal belongings would stay under those separate tents too. So you would immediately show up, maybe do the temp thing if you have to have the temperature, and then split off to the tent that belongs to your age group. And those same counselors stay with them.
Thank you, Jane. Some others from the chat room. Engaging kids is extremely important, but ultimately parents will be looking for a safe place for their kids regardless of activities. Kids want to be outside on summer days. I really think it's not going to be a good year for a summer camp. And possibly just close it down for a year for the safety of everyone. With high schools, colleges, and professional sports all being down, how can anyone feel safe running a playground program or camp? I would absolutely love to see this year be as normal as possible, but just don't see it happening. If we don't have camp, has anyone suggested their staff engage in promoting themselves as a nanny for those who still have to head to work? So there's a lot of planning going on. I think you know, we're all feeling the stress of dealing with these what if scenarios. And we're constantly coming up with, you know, scenario A, B, and C. If this happens, then we're going to do this. If this doesn't happen, then we're going to do this. And I know it can be exhausting. But it's from what I'm reading from this chat, I have to commend all of you for thinking through all these options. It's obviously, we've all been thinking about this a lot. They're saying that all major sports will be shut down for the rest of the year. And I do notice it's about, our hour is almost up. So I wanted to make sure that I opened it up again for anyone who had some last comment or question for the group, because, you know, this is the time to ask it. You got a lot of great minds here. So please, let's spend this last couple minutes. Anybody with questions or comments?
Did someone mention that the governor was there, the CDC was coming out with guidelines on Friday? Did I hear that right? Or was it something else?
No, you did. They're draft guidelines, and I included them in the chat text here. So we can send you some of the chat text, and that link will be there. But you can also Google it, I'm sure, and find it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If we do open and a second wave comes, we have to send everyone home. The administration refund nightmare is also on my mind. Yes, refunds have been, I think, everybody's bane right now, trying to figure that all out. Just curious, here's a great question. How many people will be relieved if we will not be allowed to have summer camps? Let's see some hands. Would you be relieved if you were removed of that responsibility? 3, 4. Oh, look at this.
I just want to know one way or the other. It's the uncertainty that's killing me.
Right. I agree with that 100%. I think it's, you know, I get those questions from a lot of different people, and it's just the unknown. And I thought I was a very flexible person until this all happened, and now I've realized I really like to know my answers.
It does show our value more than ever, though, because, and especially just the park maintenance and, you know, what we do for the parks alone. It's never been so popular ever, but, you know, and you're seeing all these things come out about mental health and everything. So it has shown our value, I think, more than ever. In these programs, and the fact that people, it is hard, it does test your patience, because people get super mad and frustrated with us over, like, when are the courts going to reopen, or, you know, they're taking these things very personally. So I'm choosing to try and look at it in a positive way, that it's, oh, well, at least it shows that we're valued. You know, there's that quote about getting yelled at being viewing it as people caring very much. I forget, that was a show quote or something, but people's frustration shows how much they care.
That's true. And I think one silver lining from all this is that the use of our parks has gone through the roof, as far as people trying to just get outside and walk and have a place where they can not be home. And I think having that realization that parks are there and people have found different ways to use them will pay off in the long run for all of us when things return to whatever that new normal is, when we go to, you know, prove our worth to the municipal people. So that's just a hopeful thing for me, but I really think we can play on that. So, all right, any other closing comments? All right, well, I thank you all for participating. This was a great roundtable. We had 88 participants. There were a lot of good ideas thrown out there. We will get the chat box out to everyone and a recording of this roundtable if you want to watch it again or want to turn people towards it. We'll probably plan on having another roundtable on summer camps, just in general, in the next 10 days or so. So maybe more will be revealed by then. We'll have some more solid ideas. But thank you all for participating. It was really a great conversation. And stay safe.
Dan,
Thanks, Dan.
thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
and shameless plug, there is a D3 camp roundtable tomorrow at 2:00.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye now. Yeah, I'm just going to stay on my beach here.
Yeah.
Go have a
Hey, guys.
coronavirus in the chair.
And